Today I wanted to answer the question, what is the best grading company for cards and why? And I figured, honestly, there's no real answer, but I'll give you my overall thoughts. As you guys already know, we have three main grading companies. I mean, technically now there's like way more, especially post-pandemic with all these new companies popping up. But the main three are always going to be PSA, CGC, and BGS. And honestly, before we even hop into this, I want to ask you guys what you like the most. So I guess, which company do you grade with the most and why? Make sure you say why, because I'm kind of curious what makes you like gravitate towards one company over another. All right, before we start, first we gotta get some cards out because I can't just talk about BGS, PSA, and CGC and not have some kind of examples. I think it's only fitting that I start with PSA because this was my initial introduction into grading back in 2017. And honestly, PSA is the biggest one. They're kind of like the go-to, they're the standard. They grade literally like millions of cards per week, I wanna say. It's crazy how massive PSA is. So what's wrong with them? Honestly, nothing. I mean, they had a couple of issues over the course of the past couple years, primarily in the pandemic when they slowed down the grading severely. I mean, to be fair, that affected everybody, so I wouldn't really want to dock points off of that. But honestly, PSA right now is doing everything absolutely right. Their app is great. It gives you every single step. They give you estimated turnaround when your cards are going to be back, and usually they get those cards back before even the estimation. For example, I literally chose the value plus grading method, and I think they received it on the 12th. It's already done. As of today, when I'm recording this, on the 19th, it's done. And it was actually done for 2 days, so technically they finished it in 5 days. Now it's in the assembly state. And to be fair, that could take anywhere between like a week or two, so whenever to get to that. But they're done with the grading. It's crazy. And I love the fact that they give you all the information. Let me tell you something. As a collector, there's nothing more anxiety-inducing than sending my cards off to some company, and then you're like, where are they? Are they good? Are they damaged? What's happening? Tell me something. The less information you have, the worse it is. And PSA telling you everything that's going on is fantastic. So as far as service, PSA is fantastic. But what about the slabs? Honestly, there's nothing I can say bad about the slabs. I think their slabs are just on point. They're perfect. You know, the card is right in front of it. It's very, very visible. Something that I don't like about other grading companies, which we'll get to, is how sometimes you can't really even see the card that much. But this is so clear and just in your face. It's great. What about the grading, though? I think the only critique I have about PSA is, again, this just comes down to who grades it. Sometimes their grading standard is weird. Because I've seen PSA 10s that are like PSA 7s, 8s. And to be fair, this happened a lot with older certs, which is why a lot of people prefer newer certs, especially everything after like the 4 million range. But still, like, sometimes I look at a card, I'm like, this is not a 10. How did this get a 10? What happened? I think the only thing I can say is their grading standards are just so inconsistent sometimes. And the same thing can be said about PSA 9s. There's been so many times where I've actually graded with PSA over the course of the past 4, 5, 6 years now, and I'm like, how is this a 9? And then the best part is, you crack it out, you resub it, and guess what? At some point, it's gonna be a 10. And then sometimes you'll just buy a PSA 10, or you'll trade for a PSA 10, or you obtain a PSA 10. You look at the back and you're just like, what happened? And the problem that this causes, actually it's a good example, is it causes weird pricing issues that kind of is not healthy for the market. Yugioh is the best example for this. Now you guys know me, I don't really care about prices that much. I hate discussing prices when it comes down to cards because I feel like it's unhealthy sometimes. I feel like if you're a collector, you should just go after the card. If you want a card, you want the highest grade, go for it. But a lot of times people turn into more about like investment talk where it's like, this is like $1 million card. Like, who cares, bro? Do you care about the card or not? Do you care about the price? Now, to be fair, it is cool to have a card and see it do this to prices, especially if you got it when it was dirt cheap. I mean, I pulled this Yugioh for like a $60 pack at the time, and at the height, it sold for $129,000. But I never considered it like a $100,000 card, if I can be real with you. I think that was just one of those lucky, weird sales. But the reason why I think the inconsistent grading thing is an issue is, well, a good example is a lot of times a PSA 10 will sell that's not a PSA 10. We've seen that with Charizards. We've seen that with this Yugioh. I think a Yugioh in the past like 2 years sold for like, I think it dropped all the way down to like $20,000, $30,000. And that was because it was not a 10. Somebody bought that because the slab says it's a 10. I'm gonna be real with you. Anybody that buys a card, if you're buying a card because it says 10 on it, but you're not actually like observing and looking at the card, you're an idiot. I'm gonna be real with you. You are an idiot. Why would you spend $20,000, $30,000 on a card where you can just buy a PSA 9 at that point that looks better? What are y'all doing? Anyways, but the problem is in the way like collectibles work is people always refer to it as last sold. It's like, oh, well, last sold Yugioh was $20,000, so it's a $20,000 card. I'll offer you 20 for it. And then anybody has a 10, they're gonna be all like, no, I'm not selling for that much. That's insane. The lack of consistency sometimes can definitely be unhealthy for the card market aspect of trading. So that's one thing that I don't like, is sometimes stuff happens in grading, you're just confused. You're just like, how did I get a 10? What happened? I'll never forget, there was a infamous situation where it was a PSA 10 first edition Shadowless Charizard that sold for like $40,000, $30,000 back in like 2019, and they never showed the back. They never showed the back. You want to know why? Because it was whitening all around the back. But when that sold for that low, people on Mackie were like, oh my god, the card is crashing, I'm gonna sell it. And it caused so many issues. Because here's the thing, whenever a card sells at a record low, nobody shows you the quality of the card. They just talk about the number. Yo, Lugia sold for $20,000. The card is dead. Sell, sell, sell. You want to know why it sold for 20 grand? Because it was a PSA 8. It was a PSA 7. It was a PSA 1, bro. That's what happened. Somebody wasn't doing their job that day, and they got to fix that. Now, I will say, it have been a bit better. It happens, unfortunately. If you're grading 1 million cards per week, at some point, you're going to get cards that sometimes, you know, something happens. They slip up. Honestly, everything else, I can't say anything bad about PSA. Their slabs look great, like I said. They give you the pop report. We'll talk about it here in a second. It's nice to see all the information you need to see. You can scan the card and see how many cards exist, how many 10s exist, you know. Everything you need to know as a collector is a PSA, and because of that, they get 2 thumbs up from me. Speaking of consistencies, man, do I have a lot to say about CGC. For starters, I have never used the service. I never will. You know, I debated a while back, because here's the thing. I actually love the slabs. They're so clear. I'll be real with you. I think trading cards look the best in CGC slabs between the 3, just because they're so clear, you know. And the card's also very, very nicely held. It's not like loose. I think my biggest pet peeve with like PSA sometimes is if the slab is a bit loose, the card can shake, and that can, you know, over time damage the card. I feel like CGC has nailed it with the actual encapsulation process. The problem is, I do not trust their grades, especially with this bullshit fiasco that happened when they got rid of the 9.5s. Because here's the thing, people don't want to see 9.5 on their slabs, and CGC realized that. They were smart to change that. No one wants to have a 9.5. There's something about having a 9.5, you're just like, it just doesn't look right, you know? Here's a 9.5 BGS, you're just like, but why? So I understand why they got rid of it. But at the same time, I feel like it's like a fraud grade, if that makes sense. This is a 9.5, by the way. I bought this before they even announced the upgrades. I had this for like the longest. Like literally, I think I had it for like a year and a half prior to them, you know, announcing that 9.5s were no longer a thing. And then I sent it in, and it's now 10. But this card has so many print lines on it. It's crazy. Honestly, this Lugia looks great. Everything else is fantastic on it. You know, the edges, the corners, and stuff like that. It just, the surface is ass. And normally, this will be like a 8.5 with BGS, where they're actually very accurate. But with CGC, they don't care, because they know if it says 10, people, that's all they care about. I don't know. My problem with CGC is I cannot trust their grades. Old CGC used to be great, because I remember at one point they were so strict with their grades that was insane. You would send a perfect 10 in, and it would be a 9 or 9.5. You're just like, but why? You crack it out, you send it to PSA and BGS. Surprise, surprise, it's a 10. CGC, I feel like originally used to be strict for no reason at all. They were just strict to be strict. And that was great, because at least when they said it was a 10, they meant it. And then they completed through an entire like model out the window and said, yeah, now everything's a 10 because that's all people want to see. And let's be real, a lot of times people will buy a car solely because it says 10 on it. What's funny about this Lugia is I remember I paid $800 for this. Originally it was a 9.5. And then like a year later when they did the whole upgrade, this car became like $4,000. I think the same week, a unlimited CGC 10 Lugia, not even the pristine one, but the regular 10, sold for like $4,000. I'm like, oh, so not because it says 10 on it instead of 9.5, it's more valuable? It's the same card. It looks awful. Again, if you're ever buying a card or trading for it, and it says 10 on it, make sure you do your homework. Don't just buy it because it has the number on it. A lot of times, I don't know, graders are just trying to go home or something. I don't know. They'll sometimes not check everything, and they end up misgrading. This whole fiasco of 9.5s and now all 10s, it was just not healthy at all. So now people are like, yeah, I have a CGC 10, CGC 9, CGC 8. I'm like, but is it really a 9, 10, 8, 7? Is it actually? What would PSA give it? What would BGS give it? So I don't trust it, but hey, if it has a higher grade in the CGC slab, that's all people care about at the end of the day. But yeah, honestly, CGC is one that I would just never recommend. But if you like the slabs, and honestly, if your card is clean, go for it, I guess. Like I said, end of the day, it's what makes you enjoy the card the most in that slab. Because Another reason why you want to encapsulate cards to begin with is because they're safe and protected. PSA, like I said, the thing I'll dock them on points on is sometimes the card will be loose and you can just shake it. It'll damage over time. But with this, the card is safe. It's right there in your face. You ain't got to worry about anything, you know, the glares and stuff like that. And end of the day, it does its job. It's just the number can't be trusted sometimes. And finally, we got to talk about BGS. Now, you guys know me. BGS is my favorite just because, again, I think what bugs me the most sometimes is when you grade a card and you can just feel how loose it is. I feel like BGS protects the card the best because not only do you have like the super tough plastic around it, the encapsulation, but they also have like a special sleeve that further protects the cards and keeps it in place. I love that. However, it does lose points because of the extra sleeve. Sometimes the card, like they got these weird like glares on. You see how you got that little glare on top of the card? It does sometimes kind of take away from being able to look at the card. And it's not the biggest deal. Like I said, if you were to see this card inside a CGC slab or a PSA slab, it just pops so much more. But I kind of rather have the protection, if that makes sense. So if I have to like deal with like that little glare of the sleeve, I'm all here for it. Now, I'll be real with you. The main thing about BGS that they have over the other two is honestly their accuracy. If they say it's a BGS 10, it's a 10. And on top of that, when you have like a perfect 10, you also have the coveted black label. When you have a black label card, you know so little of these exist because they're so strict. I have never seen a misgrade with a black label. Sometimes, I mean, I can't say I've never seen a misgrade with the 10 because it happens here and there. But for the most part, when something says a black label, you can trust it with BGS. And I don't know, this is just my personal opinion. I have never seen a black label that looks bad. You might have. I can't speak on everybody else, but for me personally, we've seen a lot of black labels over the course of the past couple years. When they said black label, they meant it. And honestly, the slabs themselves, I think they're the best because they feel so tough. You know, like when you pick something up, it feels expensive. That's how BGS slabs feel as opposed to CGC and PSA. Now, of course, it sounds like we're just going to be doing spins on BGS and just doing nonstop tricks on it. We're not. BGS actually is the worst, surprisingly, out of all the grading services. And not because of this, but because all the other issues that pop up. For starters, their service is ass. I'm gonna be real with you. BGS, I love y'all, but the service is just so bad because, like, again, my anxiety kicks in when I send you guys a card and I'm like, what happens? Did you get it? Did you receive it? I mean, you'll get the notification that says, yeah, your card's been received, but then you don't know anything about that until it's done. Until you get the notification that says you've been charged, your cards are on the way, you have no idea what's happening. I really wish that BGS had some kind of infrastructure similar to PSA where you can see the steps fully. I mean, they kind of have it, but they don't. Like, you know when a card starts being graded and stuff like that, but it's so like a big question mark where even though you know your cards start grading, you don't know what's going on. That's one thing that PSA is superior with. Like, they have the step-by-step process that tells you everything that's happening. With BGS, you have three settings. 1, we received your cards. 2, we're starting to grade it. And 3, it's on its way home. And it's not the biggest deal because you know it's safe, but at the same time, I kind of wish there was more information about that. Again, it's not the biggest deal, but it's something that they should really think about for collectors. Now, my least favorite part, and I cannot stand this, and this is why I'm putting BGS on the bottom. Their pop report is abysmal. Here's the thing. When I grade a card, when I look up this Dark Magician Girl and I scan that, I love to see how many exist. You can see the full report, how many 9s there are, how many 10s there are, and stuff like that. I love that they do that with PSA. You know what happens when you scan BGS cards sometimes? It says no report found. It doesn't exist. The card's not in the pop report. You're just like, what happened? I want to know how many 10s exist for a specific card on any genre of trading cards, whether it be sports cards, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, White Schwartz, whatever. I just want to know how many cards exist out there that are not part of pop report. If a card says it has 10 BGS 10s, is it actually 10? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 100? Do they only sometimes add the pop report? Where did they go wrong with that? That's what I want to know. And why do I got to keep grading cards with them and then get zero information? This card right here is a massive card. This is a massive card in White Schwartz. The card itself is like $3,000. Guess what? Can't see how many are in the pop report. I know I got a 10. I saw a black label pop up actually on Instagram the other day, so I know a black label exists. I know at least 110 exists, but if you look up this specific card, if you type in that number, it doesn't exist. And in the future, if this happens to show it, that means they finally added this card, but I can't say the same about the rest. It is such a pet peeve of mine to always have to message BGS after a card is graded and be like, can you add it to the pop report? Why is this not already an automatic thing? Because look, what's the point of grading cards? Number 1, to protect it. To protect it and seal forever. 2, to get a grade that shows you what the card quality is, and then both of those are together. And then the next part is to see how many exist within the pop report. It's cool to see how many exist. I want to know how many 10s exist, how many 9s exist, how many 8s exist. I need that information as a collector. I want to know. But you know what? Not adding to the pop report isn't the main issue sometimes. The other issue is how poorly they manage the pop report. This card right here, as you can see, it says BGS 10. Cord essentially duelist boxed, Dark Magician Girl, QCR. It doesn't show any 10s in the pop report. I actually tweeted about this the other day. If you look up this set, at the time, it showed only one 9.5, 0 10s. How's that possible? I'm literally holding a 10. What's up with that? Bro. And then here's another one, Makima. This is like one of the biggest cards in White Schwartz right now as well. Massive. And also in English. You know, maybe in Japanese you can argue, well, they don't have enough data yet. That's why they're kind of slow behind. That's why they probably didn't add this. Why is there only one Makima in the pop report? Again, at the time of recording this video, there's only one 110. And since then, I have seen several black labels. I've seen at least two or three that were sold, that were listed and stuff like that. 2 or 3, but it's not in the pop report. And what pisses me off is this card has a pop report. It just says 1. It says there's 110 in existence, and it's not mine. It's not my number. Beckett, what happened? Can you guys hire somebody out there to get the pop report thing and make it a consistent thing? Because, like, I can turn my eye to, you know when a card is graded and have that information. I can turn my eye on that. I just need to know what's going on, because what's the point of grading with you guys if you're not going to do the second part of the job? Why am I paying you for a service and you're half-assed delivering it? Like, make it make sense. And not even just that, but sometimes the pop report is a complete mess. Like, if you look up this card right here, it'll show you like 20 different entries. To be fair, in the Dungeon Dice set, they had 3 different Dark Magician Girls, all with different rarities. But why would I tap this one in? It shows me all of those. It shouldn't show me all of those. It should only show me the prismatic ones for green. Like, why is it such a mess? Like, what happened? What's going on? Now, the final thing I want to talk about with Beckett, rating, I guess, harshness, let's call it that. Again, when they say it's a 10, they mean it, and I love that. I love that they're the most accurate, by far. Out of any cards graded from PSA, CGC, and BGS, when Beckett says it's a 10, 99.9% of the time, it's a 10. And for me, it's 100% of the time. Again, I've never seen a 10 that wasn't a 10. But sometimes I do want to question how they grade cards. For example, this Toru was originally a 9.5. And to be fair, the reason why is because there's a piece of hollow foil right there that next to her elbow that looks like damage. And honestly, when they first received this card, they all gave the 9.5s because of that. And then they realized, wait a minute, this isn't damage, it's part of the card. So they corrected it. So when I sent this card back in for review, it got the black label. But then sometimes I look at a black label compared to a 10, and I'm just like, how are these not the same? I had this card reviewed twice now, and both times they're just like, nah, it's not black label worthy. But I'm like, but I'm literally looking at 10s. I've seen black labels side by side. I've zoomed in Photoshop. They're the same centering. Like, do I just have to get lucky? It's just RNG? Like, here's another one. I have my own. I have 2 10s of this, and they to a T look exactly the same. But like, when it comes down to their issue being like, oh, the setting's a 9.5, it's just like, so it's just an opinion at that point. Can we get some, like, I don't know, better way to look at centering? Because a lot of times, I'll be real with you, it's bullshit. It's just bullshit. But again, if you want to compare the centering of this to that one, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like, a lot of times it's to a T is the same. So I'm just like, how do you guys measure centering? Like, are we just guessing? Are you guys purposely not giving out 10s on centering because you know we'll just resub, in which case you got me there, because I'm gonna resend it in until it gets a black label, or if it gets denied like 2 or 3 times, and at which point I'll just accept it. But I will say this, honestly, you got me with the black labels. The label looks so cool, it's so coveted, and you know if you got a black label, the pop report, if there is a pop report on it, is so minuscule that it just feels cool knowing that you have like one of, you know, the 100 that might be graded, or the 50 that might be graded. So honestly, off the black labels alone, they got me. I think BGS is still my favorite despite all the issues that they have. I just really, the only thing, if anyone from Beckett happens to see this video, the only thing I really want you to fix right now is a pop report. Like, I don't want to always have to message you guys, because 1, I feel like I'm a nuisance doing that, and 2, it just, why am I paying you for a service and you're giving me half of it? I have a big problem with that. But yeah, I mean, if you do get that black label, the car looks so great, and you know it's protected as well. It feels expensive. It's nice. I like that. What are your thoughts? And hopefully this video helps you figure out what you want to do. And maybe by the end of this video, I can also ask you a question: which do you like the most between the main three? And if you want also to chime in and talk about other grading companies as well, by all means, go for it. I actually recently purchased a ARS IP Masquerena Yu-Gi-Oh card because ARS slabs look fantastic. They look beautiful. However, I think this is only like a Japanese company, so grading with them is a bit more difficult, which is why I probably won't ever do that. But ARS slabs look great. I might do a whole video on that whenever I get that card at some point in the next like week or two. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully this was helpful, and let me know your thoughts. I'll see you guys in the comment section below. Peace.